I've always been the afterthought in my family, the invisible middle child sandwiched between my brilliant older brother and my perfect younger sister. But nothing drove that point home more painfully than my birthday. Year after year, it would come and go with barely a whisper of acknowledgement, a hastily purchased card, a belated happy birthday text, sometimes nothing at all. My name is Olivia Chen, 32 years old, and I've spent my entire life making myself smaller to accommodate everyone else. Working 60-hour weeks at the architectural firm I helped build from the ground up, sending money to help my parents with their mortgage, babysitting my sister's kids on weekends so she could find herself through various expensive hobbies. Always reliable Olivia, always understanding Olivia, always there when they needed something Olivia. Last year was the final straw. I had just closed the biggest deal of my career, a sustainable apartment complex that would revitalise a struggling neighbourhood in downtown Boston. The project had consumed me for months, but I'd managed to finalise everything the day before my birthday. For once, I thought, I'd celebrate properly. I even dropped hints for weeks, mentioning restaurants I wanted to try, sending links to an exhibit at the Museum of Fine Arts I was dying to see. The morning of my birthday, I woke up to 0 messages. I told myself it was early. I got ready for work, applied extra care to my makeup, wore my favourite navy blue dress that hugged my curves in all the right places. I kept checking my phone throughout the morning meetings. Nothing. By lunch, I had one message from my dentist's office confirming an appointment for the following week. That evening, I came home to my empty apartment overlooking the Charles River, the lights of Cambridge twinkling across the water. I ordered takeout for one and opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. As I sat at my dining table alone, I scrolled through social media and saw my younger sister Mia's post about her new Peloton bike, purchased with money I had loaned her last month when she complained about being broke. The next day, when my mother finally called and I mentioned it had been my birthday, her gasp of performative shock didn't even sound convincing anymore. "Oh, Olivia, I'm so sorry. Things have been so busy with your father's retirement party planning and Mia's gallery opening." That's when something inside me finally snapped. I realised a fundamental truth. People treat you how you allow them to be treated. And I had allowed myself to become invisible for far too long. This year would be different. This year I wouldn't be forgotten. This year I would make damn sure they remembered. The plan started taking shape 3 months before my birthday. It began innocently enough when my mother called asking for another loan. "Olivia, sweetheart, your father and I are a little short this month. The property taxes on the house came due, and with his retirement..." I'd heard this story before. Their 5-bedroom colonial in Wellesley wasn't just a home, it was a status symbol they refused to downsize from. Despite the fact that they could barely afford the upkeep, a home I helped them keep with my regular financial contributions. "How much do you need, Mum?" I asked, already opening my banking app. "Just $3,000. We'll pay you back next month when the CD matures." They never paid me back, not once in 10 years. At this point, I'd loaned them close to $90,000, money that could have gone toward my own home instead of renting, or invested for my future. "Actually, Mum, I've been thinking, instead of sending you money, what if I just paid off the mortgage entirely?" The silence on the other end was telling. Then came the breathless excitement. "Olivia, could you really do that? That would change everything for us." "I've been saving," I said, which was true. The firm's doing well. Also true. I could transfer the money directly to the bank, about $175,000, right? $172,163 to be exact, she said without hesitation. She knew the exact figure down to the dollar. "Oh, your father will be overjoyed. This is the most wonderful gift." I smiled to myself. "I'll need to set up a meeting with your bank. Can you send me all the account details?" Within an hour, I had their mortgage account number, the name of their bank representative, and even their online banking login information. My mother had never been particularly careful with sensitive information. "One more thing," I added casually. "Let's keep this between us for now. I want to surprise Dad." Of course, of course." "Oh, Olivia, I don't know what we would do without you." That was precisely the problem. They had never had to find out. The second phase of my plan involved my sister Mia. At 28, she was still finding her path, which apparently involved dropping out of 3 different graduate programs and starting various small businesses that inevitably failed. Currently, she was trying to be a painter, despite having no formal training or, frankly, discernible talent. Her latest scheme was opening a small gallery in Jamaica Plain to showcase her work. She needed investors, naturally. When she called me 2 months before my birthday, I was ready. Liv! I found the perfect space for the gallery. It's a little raw, but the location is amazing. And the light, you should see how the afternoon sun hits the back wall. That sounds great, Mia. How much are you looking for? Well, the space is $4,000 a month, and I'd need first, last, and security deposit, plus about $10,000 for renovations and another $5,000 for the opening night party. So around $27,000. She said it like she was asking to borrow $20. That's a lot of money, I said, letting a note of hesitation enter my voice. I know, but this is it, Liv. This is my big break. I can feel it. The collection I'm working on is going to change everything. It's about familial connections and the invisible threads that bind us. How poetic. And convenient. Send me the business plan, I said. The what? The business plan. Projected revenue, marketing strategy, competitive analysis. If I'm going to invest that kind of money, I need to see the numbers. Oh, she faltered. I haven't exactly... I've been focusing on the creative side. Well, why don't I help you put one together? I could come over this weekend. The panic in her voice was almost comical. No! The apartment's a mess, and I'm in the middle of a creative burst. I shouldn't break my flow. Translation. She didn't want me to see that she wasn't actually creating anything. Tell you what, I offered. I'll send you a template. You fill it out as best you can, and we'll go from there. Also, I'll need to be added to the lease as a co-signer for the investment. You will? That's great. Her relief was palpable. Thank you, Liv. You're the best sister ever. Just trying to support your dreams, I said, meaning every insincere word. The final piece involved my brother James. Unlike Mia, James was successful, almost obnoxiously so. Harvard undergrad, Stanford MBA, now a venture capitalist with a corner office in the financial district. He had it all: the successful career, the beautiful wife, the 2 perfect children, the vacation home in the Berkshires. What most people didn't know was that his initial capital had come from our grandmother's inheritance, money that was supposed to be split evenly between the 3 of us. But James had convinced our grandmother in her final years that he would manage the money for all of us. Somehow, that management had resulted in Mia and me receiving $10,000 each, while James walked away with nearly $1 million. I had never confronted him about it. What would be the point? But I hadn't forgotten. 6 weeks before my birthday, I invited him to lunch at an upscale restaurant near his office. James was always too busy for family gatherings, but he never turned down a free meal at a Michelin-starred restaurant. Olivia, he said, air-kissing my cheek when he arrived, 15 minutes late. You look well. New haircut? I touched my hair, which I hadn't changed in years. No, same old me. Must be the lighting in here. He picked up the wine list. Shall we start with a bottle of something interesting? James always ordered the most expensive wine on the menu when someone else was paying. I smiled. Absolutely. After ordering a $300 bottle of Bordeaux and the tasting menu, James finally asked, So what's the occasion? You don't usually suggest places like this. I've been doing some financial planning, I said, taking a small sip of the wine he had already half finished. The firm is growing, and I'm thinking about investments. His eyes lit up. This was his territory. What kind of investments? Real estate? Securities? I'm working with some promising startups if you're looking for something with higher returns. Actually, I was thinking about family investments. His expression cooled slightly. What do you mean? Mom and Dad's mortgage, for one. Did you know they're still making payments on the house? At their age, they should be free and clear. James shifted uncomfortably. They made their choices. Dad could have taken that partnership at his firm instead of staying in middle management. Mum didn't have to quit teaching to raise us. I'm going to pay off their mortgage, I said, as a gift. His eyebrows shot up. That's generous. How much are we talking about? About $175,000. James nearly choked on his wine. You have that kind of liquid capital. The firm must be doing better than I thought. I've been saving, I said simply. I'm also helping Mia with her gallery. Now he looked genuinely shocked. Mia's latest disaster? Olivia, that's throwing good money after bad. She's never going to make anything of herself. Maybe not, but she's family. I leaned forward. Which brings me to why I wanted to talk to you. I've been thinking about Grandma's inheritance. The temperature between us dropped 10 degrees. James set down his glass carefully. That was settled years ago. Was it? Because I've been doing some calculations. Compound interest over 10 years on what should have been my share. It adds up to quite a lot. Olivia, you know Grandma wanted me to invest that money. The market took a downturn. These things happen. Funny how your personal portfolio seemed to weather that downturn just fine. His jaw tightened. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you that I know what happened, James. I've always known. I just never had the leverage to do anything about it. But now, with Mom and Dad's mortgage and Mia's gallery, I'm becoming quite the family benefactor. And what? You want me to pay you back now, after all these years? I smiled. Not at all. I just want us to understand each other. Family should be transparent, don't you think? The rest of the lunch was tense, with James barely touching his $200 portion of the tasting menu. When we parted, he gave me a long, calculating look. You've changed, Olivia. No, I said. I've just stopped being invisible. As my birthday approached, I set the final pieces of my plan in motion. I created a new bank account and transferred a significant sum into it, almost everything I had, minus 6 months of living expenses. To anyone examining my regular accounts, it would appear I had indeed depleted my savings to help my family. In reality, I had been planning this for longer than even I had admitted to myself. The loans to my parents over the years, I had documented every single one, with dates, amounts, and the promises of repayment. Mia's failed businesses that I had funded, all recorded, along with texts and emails where she swore this would be the last time she needed help. And James. I had hired a forensic accountant 2 years ago to trace exactly what had happened to our grandmother's estate. The results were damning, evidence of manipulation, if not outright fraud. I hadn't acted on any of this information, until now. 1 week before my birthday, I sent out invitations to a special family dinner at my apartment. The date? The day after my birthday. I knew exactly what would happen. They would show up. Not realise they had missed my birthday yet again, and then I would spring my surprise. My mother called immediately after receiving the invitation. Olivia, darling, what's this dinner about? Is everything okay? Everything's fine, Mum. I just thought it would be nice to have everyone together. It's been a while. Well, of course we'll be there. Should I bring anything? Just yourselves, I said warmly. I'll take care of everything else. I spent the week preparing, not just the food, though I did order an impressive spread from my favourite catering company, but the documentation. Everything was organised into neat folders, blue for my parents, purple for Mia, green for James. Years of financial manipulation and exploitation laid out in black and white. The day of my birthday arrived. I took the day off work and treated myself to a spa day, massage, facial, mani-pedi, the works. Then I came home and opened a bottle of champagne, watching the sun set over the river. My phone remained silent except for automated messages from my dentist, veterinarian, and a couple of subscription services. Not a single family member remembered. Again. I smiled as I sipped my champagne. Perfect. The next evening, I dressed carefully in a red sheath dress that projected confidence and success. I arranged the catered food on my dining table, set out the good china and crystal, and placed the folders discreetly on the sideboard. My parents arrived first, exactly on time as always. Olivia, the apartment looks lovely, my mother said, air-kissing both my cheeks while my father handed me a bottle of mid-priced Chardonnay. Is that a new couch? I've had it for 3 years, Mom. Oh, well, it looks new. Mia arrived 20 minutes late, breezing in with an armful of daylilies clearly purchased from the grocery store down the street. Sorry I'm late. The Uber driver took the wrong route. James and his wife Rebecca were the last to arrive, a full 30 minutes late. Rebecca kissed my cheek warmly. She had always been kind to me, perhaps the only one in the family who actually saw me. Olivia, thank you for having us. James has been looking forward to it all week. The tight smile on my brother's face suggested otherwise. Once everyone had a drink in hand and we were seated around the table, my mother raised her glass. A toast to Olivia for bringing us all together. It's so rare that we can coordinate everyone's busy schedules. They all clinked glasses. Not one of them mentioned my birthday. Yes, I said, smiling. It is rare, and there's a reason I wanted everyone here tonight. I stood up and walked to the sideboard, feeling all their eyes on me. Yesterday was my birthday, I said calmly, turning to face them. The reaction was immediate and predictable. Gasps of shock, hands covering mouths. Expressions of dismay. Oh my God, Liv! I can't believe we forgot. With everything going on. I held up a hand, silencing them. It's okay. You forget every year. I've come to expect it. The uncomfortable silence that followed was delicious. But this year is different, I continued. This year, I decided to give myself a gift. The gift of truth. The gift of standing up for myself. I picked up the folders and returned to the table. Mum, Dad, I said, placing the blue folder in front of them. This is a complete record of every loan I've given you over the past 10 years. The total comes to $87,432. Not including the mortgage payoff I promised you. My father's face reddened. Olivia, what is this about? We've always intended to pay you back. No, you haven't, I said gently. And that's okay. I've made peace with that. But I won't be paying off your mortgage. Instead, I've prepared some information on reverse mortgages and downsizing options that make much more financial sense for your situation. My mother's hand trembled as she opened the folder. But, you promised. We've already told the neighbours. I'm sorry you'll be embarrassed, I said, not feeling sorry at all. But this is what's happening. I turned to my sister. Mia, your folder contains all the money I've invested in your various ventures over the years. Nearly $50,000 in total. It also contains a termination notice for the gallery lease I never actually signed. Mia's face crumpled. You said you believed in me. I do believe in you. I believe you're capable of standing on your own 2 feet and making something of yourself without using me as your personal ATM. Finally, I turned to James. Your folder is the most interesting. It contains the results of a forensic accounting of Grandma's estate. Would you like to share with everyone what that investigation found, or shall I? James's face had gone from red to white. Rebecca looked between us, confusion evident in her expression. James? She asked. What is she talking about? Nothing, he said quickly. Olivia's obviously having some kind of breakdown. I traced every penny, I said, still calm. You diverted over $900,000 that should have been split between the 3 of us. You committed fraud, James. That's a serious accusation, he blustered. But I could see the fear in his eyes. Yes, it is, one that I'm prepared to take to the authorities if necessary. The silence that fell over the table was absolute. My mother was quietly crying. My father looked stunned. Mia was staring at James with dawning comprehension. Rebecca had moved her chair slightly away from her husband. What do you want? James finally asked, his voice hollow. I want what's fair. I want the truth acknowledged. I want to be seen. I placed 3 documents on the table. These are promissory notes. Mum and Dad, yours states that you'll pay me $200 a month toward what you owe me. It's a token amount, but it acknowledges the debt. Mia, yours commits you to 10 hours a week working at my firm's front desk until you've worked off what you owe. It's time you had a real job. I turned to James. Yours is different. You're going to transfer $300,000 each to Mia and me, a third of what you took, plus modest interest. You're also going to tell the truth to everyone at this table about what you did, or I go to the authorities, and your career is over." For a moment, no one moved. Then James reached for his water glass, his hand visibly shaking. "She's right," he said quietly, "about all of it. I convinced Grandma to give me control of the estate. I manufactured investment losses. I kept the money." Rebecca stood up abruptly. "I need some air." She walked out onto my balcony, closing the door behind her. My mother had stopped crying and was looking at James with an expression I'd never seen before, disappointment mixed with dawning comprehension. "All these years," she said. "All these years we've struggled, and you had all that money. Your own parents." James couldn't meet her eyes. "I'll make it right," he mumbled. "Yes," I said. "You will." I looked around at my family, really looked at them, perhaps for the first time seeing them clearly for who they were. Not the idealized versions I had carried in my head, but flawed, selfish people who had taken my love and loyalty for granted. "I love you all," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "But I love myself too, and that's something I've forgotten for far too long." One by one they signed the documents, and My mother hugged me tightly before they left, whispering, "I'm so sorry, Olivia, for everything." Mia lingered after our parents left. "I had no idea about what James did," she said. "I would never have taken that money from you if I'd known." "Wouldn't you?" I asked gently. She had the grace to look ashamed. "I'll be at the office on Monday, 9 o'clock sharp." James was the last to leave. Rebecca had called a car and left earlier, unwilling to ride home with him. "You've destroyed my marriage," he said, his voice flat. "No, James. You did that yourself." I handed him back his folder. "The rest of the evidence is safely stored with my attorney. If you don't make the transfers within 48 hours, it all goes to the district attorney." After everyone had gone, I poured myself another glass of champagne and walked out onto my balcony. The city lights shimmered on the dark water of the Charles River. For the first time in years, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. My phone pinged with a text message. It was from Rebecca. "I had no idea about any of this. I'm so sorry for what James did to you, and I wanted you to know I remembered it was your birthday yesterday. I bought you a gift, but James said we should wait and give it to you at dinner. I should have followed my instinct. Happy birthday, Olivia. You deserve so much better." I smiled as I typed my reply. "Thank you, Rebecca. That means more than you know." The next morning, I woke up to notifications from my bank. 2 transfers of $300,000 each had been deposited into my accounts overnight. James had made good on his promise, and faster than I'd expected. I immediately transferred half to Mia, keeping her share safe until she showed she was serious about turning her life around. 1 week later, my family threw me a belated birthday party. It was awkward and tense, but it was a start. My mother had baked my favourite chocolate cake, something she hadn't done since I was 12. My father gave me a framed photo of me at my college graduation, the last significant achievement of mine that they had actually witnessed. Mia presented me with a surprisingly heartfelt painting she had done of the view from my balcony. James and Rebecca didn't attend. I later heard through my mother that they were in couples counselling. I wished them well, genuinely. What I had wanted wasn't revenge, but acknowledgement. That night, as I blew out the candles on my cake, 2 weeks late but somehow more meaningful than if they'd remembered on time, I made a wish. Not for more money or success or even love, though those things would be nice. I wished for something simpler and more profound, to remain visible, to myself most of all. The following Monday, Mia showed up at the office 5 minutes early, dressed in a sensible blouse and slacks, her wild hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She looked nervous but determined. "Where do you want me?" she asked. I showed her to the front desk, introduced her to the team, and spent an hour training her on the phone system and scheduling software. "You're good at this," I said, surprised, as she quickly grasped the intricacies of our calendar system. She shrugged, a small smile playing at her lips. Maybe I've been trying to be something I'm not for too long. Over the next few months, a subtle shift occurred in my family dynamics. My parents called regularly, and not just when they needed something. They asked about my work, my friends, my life. They remembered details of conversations we'd had. They made an effort. Mia thrived at the firm, showing an organisational aptitude none of us had suspected she possessed. After working off her debt, I offered her a permanent position, which she accepted with a sincerity I'd never seen in her before. James was a more complicated story. He and Rebecca separated briefly, but eventually reconciled. He never apologised directly to me, but he sent a large donation to a scholarship fund my firm had established for underprivileged architecture students. It was something, at least. As my next birthday approached, I felt a curious absence of dread. I had no grand plans, no revenge plot, no expectations. I had already given myself the greatest gift, self-respect. The night before my birthday, I was working late at the office when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Olivia," she said, her voice warm. "Don't make any plans for tomorrow night. We're taking you to dinner for your birthday. Your father and I have reservations at that new place on Newbury Street you mentioned wanting to try." I felt a lump form in my throat. "You remembered?" "Of course we remembered." There was a pause. "We're trying, Olivia. We really are." "I know, Mum. Thank you." After we hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time, looking out at the Boston skyline as the lights came on across the city. I thought about the past year, about all that had changed and all that remained the same. I had forced my family to see me, to acknowledge their treatment of me. I had stood up for myself in a way I never had before, but the most important person I had forced to see me was myself. The next evening, as I walked into the restaurant and saw my entire family waiting, even James and Rebecca, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. They all stood as I approached the table. My father pulled out my chair. My mother handed me a small wrapped package. "Happy birthday, Olivia," they said in unison. For the first time in my adult life, they hadn't forgotten, but more importantly, neither had I. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.